Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into some truly fascinating source material. We're going to be unpacking the teachings and writings of Gai Zhufeng, the founder of Life Yuan. Now, this text makes a massive, incredibly bold claim. It states that it has completely solved the universal 5,000-year-old anxiety surrounding aging and elderly care. This is a topic that literally touches every single one of us, right? And the sociological and philosophical model presented here is both radical and absolutely thought-provoking. Let's get right into it. But before we explore this alternative model, take a look at the screen and take a quick moment to ask yourself, what are your actual plans for when you grow old? Seriously, think about it for a second. Do you picture yourself in a quiet house, hanging out with family, maybe in an assisted living facility? The fear of solitude, helplessness, and isolation in our final days is just a heavy, heavy burden for most of humanity. And this universal anxiety is exactly what our source material is attempting to dismantle. Okay, let's look at this. This really provocative quote from Gai Zhufeng sets the stage for a complete paradigm shift in how humanity approaches the end of life. According to his writings, reaching the end of life in loneliness and misery goes fundamentally against the ideal of the greatest creator, sages, and just basic human expectation itself. Zhufeng isn't just offering a band-aid here. He claims that today, this ancient, deeply rooted problem has finally found a satisfactory resolution. To grasp all of this, our explainer today will cover 1. The universal aging problem, 2. Why traditional models fail, 3. The new oasis solution, 4. Redefining life and death, and finally, 5. The prerequisite to prepare. All right, let's jump right into sections 1 and 2, the universal aging problem and why traditional models fail. The text bluntly attacks the status quo. On one side, you've got the traditional concept of relying on adult children for care. Zhufeng quotes this harsh historical truth. Although fond parents are legion, who ever saw a really filial child? He points out that during chronic sickness, dutiful children are rarely actually sitting at the bedside, so relying on your kids? That's out. Then, on the other side, we have nursing homes. The text actually describes sending the elderly to these facilities as cruel, stating that it surrounds them with this withered environment where they are essentially sent to, and I quote, wait for death somewhere else. According to the source, neither option really provides dignity. Now, this next point brilliantly illustrates the depth of Zhufeng's critique. You might be wondering, well, what about those communities where seniors voluntarily group together to support each other? The text argues that even these recent trends are merely acts of desperation. It literally calls this a helpless action. Just putting a group of aging people together to manage their decline, that falls far short of an actual thriving ideal model. So, if all our current systems are broken, what on earth is the fix? That brings us to section 3, the new oasis solution. According to Gai Zhufeng, the definitive answer is something called the new oasis for life. And to be clear, this isn't just a different type of medical facility. It's an entirely new, highly structured, intergenerational community model. The core concept here is creating this ideal support system where multiple generations don't just happen to exist near each other, but they actually live together energetically and harmoniously. Rather than isolation or segregating people by age, the text envisions a daily environment where the elderly are constantly surrounded by energetic middle-aged folks, youth, and children. The psychological goal here is profound, really. By seeing vibrant life all around them constantly, the elderly can actually forget their age. The source text describes them living out their days with passion, vitality, and taste, reaching the end of their lives not stuck in some sterile hospital room, but laughing, joking, and just chatting away. So you're probably asking, how does this actually work practically? Well, the execution relies entirely on enthusiastic, sincere, younger generations managing highly specific daily tasks. We're talking cooking, preparing tea and water, washing clothes and bedding, and assisting with bathing. But it's also about emotional care, having someone to warmly say good morning when the sun rises and good night when it sets. The whole aim of the new Oasis for Life is to ensure the elderly have zero worries about their physical well-being or their daily chores. Let's move on to section 4, redefining life and death. The philosophy presented in the text posits that death isn't the end of life, with a capital L, but merely a new starting point. I absolutely love how the source material describes this beautifully through an evocative metaphor. It says passing on is like abandoning a boat and stepping ashore. By deeply internalizing the belief that a better place awaits, the text argues that the elderly will never again fear death. Instead, they'll actually welcome its arrival with joy. Now, to prevent the misery of dying helplessly in bed from a prolonged illness, Zhu Feng introduces a concept called Chang'an meditation. The text describes this as a method that allows an elderly person to decisively choose the actual day of their passing. When they feel completely satisfied, with absolutely no more worries, and while their consciousness is still crystal clear, they utilize this practice to gracefully end their life on their own terms. It is a stark contrast to the highly medicalized death that we're so accustomed to today. Finally, we arrive at Section 5, the prerequisite to prepare. The text emphasizes that this model is not merely theoretical. Guy Chufeng points out that at the time of writing, 11 years of active practice have already proven that this community model can be, and already has been, fully realized on Earth. The author even expresses hope that governments worldwide will eventually recognize and support this pattern of elderly care because of its infinite merits. But here's the catch. The text stresses very clearly that the new Oasis for Life is absolutely not a charity. You can't just show up when you're old and sick and expect to be taken care of. Individuals must proactively contribute their own talents and financial resources well in advance. The philosophy dictates that the blessings you enjoy in your final years must be accumulated by your own efforts. To rely on the sacrifices and dedication of others without having built up your own old age care capital, well, that's deemed strictly unfair and unjust. And this brings us to a hard deadline set within the text, age 60. The author explicitly urges young and middle-aged people to prepare as soon as possible. Waiting until after the age of 60 to start considering your contribution and accumulating your capital is considered way too late. The whole system functions on the premise of a lifelong, energetic contribution to the community, which then guarantees your joyful, worry-free care when your time comes. As we wrap up this explainer on the really fascinating teachings of Guy Chufeng, we want to leave you with this final, provocative thought derived straight from the source's concluding wish. What would it take for your own final years, your sunset time, to become the most vibrant, exciting stage of your whole life? Whether or not you agree with the new Oasis model, it undeniably challenges us to completely rethink how we value, integrate, and care for the aging members of our society. Thanks for joining me today, and keep exploring.